Hello, hello. All right. We're going to wait for Arnika to sign on here. This is going to be our weekly series, Unfuck Your Body. We're going to go joint by joint, starting from the ground up, because everything starts at the ground. Let me just see if I can. I'm going to do my best to do a slide deck right now. This is going to be our introductory. So bear with us. Hello, Amanda. Arnika should be getting on any second now. We're going to go from the ankle to the knee to the hips, up through the lower back, shoulders, everything. There's Arnika. Here we go.
Yes, there we go.
Hey, we did it.
We did.
I had to stand up because I'm all like, I got a lot of energy to put into this.
I like it.
All right, let's get it popping. So I already did a little bit of an introduction. Unfuck Your Body. We're doing a weekly series every Wednesday, 10 o'clock. We are excited to, Arnika, if you can give a little introduction about yourself, what you do, who you help, what we're dealing with here.
Sorry, guys. I was trying to move my tripod. So I'm Dr. Arnika. I'm the chiropractor at Resilient Spine. Not your typical chiropractor, though. So I do full body adjustments, but I also add in a lot of soft tissue work to lengthen those muscles and get them relaxed. And we follow up with functional movement and exercises and self-mobes and all this stuff that we're going to talk about, because reality is we have to do all of this shit, or what I do doesn't matter because we're just not doing anything. So I'm excited to talk about all things ankle.
Yeah. There's no point in putting it where it's supposed to be if you're not going to keep it there.
Exactly.
What's the point? All right, so we're going to get right into it. I prepared a little bit of slide deck, mainly to keep us on track so that we can keep this short and sweet. I'm going to see if it works, because...
Let's see.
It only does it on my side, huh?
That's okay.
Yeah, all right.
I can see
all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know how to get you to this corner. Okay, so we're going to start with, is it fucked up, right? So how do you find out if your ankle is not working to its full capacity? Arnika, what's the first thing that we need to do?
We got to check dorsiflexion.
Yep.
How is that ankle moving?
Yep, absolutely. Okay, and dorsiflexion. So if dorsiflexion is the ability for your ankle to go, for your foot to go up, right? So I like to remember dorsal fin. Where's the dorsal fin on the dolphin? It ain't on the bottom side, right? It's on the top side, right? So when you dorsiflex, you're trying to bring your foot up towards your shin, right? So in order to assess dorsiflexion, we have to then try to put the shin into a forward angle over the toes. There's ways to figure that out. We got resources, right? But first and foremost, you have to assess whether your foot can come up off the ground, okay? And then what's the next thing we got to check out?
We got to check out every other range. We check out some plantar flexion, some inversion, and some eversion.
Right, so there's 4 ranges, right? So plantar flexion, can you push down into the ground, and can you point your toes, basically? Those gymnasts have that perfect little toe point. I do not have that, but yes, plantar flexion, right? So can you get down there? Sorry, I forgot about the slides, right? Assess dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, inversion, and eversion, right? So what's the most common way to injure your foot, your ankle?
The sprain, the inversion ankle sprain.
That inversion ankle sprain, right? Right. I mean, and then what the human body doesn't forget anything, right? So if you've ever played a sport, or if you've ever done anything, I guarantee you have injured your ankle at some point. And I mean, the human body will remember.
I probably had multiple ankle sprains in one game. It's just kind of, it rolls and then you just keep it moving. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the scar tissue just builds up and you got problems, right? So inversion is it just buckling in, right? Eversion, it goes out. Really hard to sprain your ankle there. You're probably going to break it, but it happens. If anything, you might get a compression injury from spraining it in. Then you hurt the inside of your ankle from just compressing it. But it happens. Your body gets fucked up. And then when you're 40, your body remembers that shit, right?
Exactly.
It goes back to haunt you. Okay, so now, Arnika, please tell us, what is another huge thing having to do with the ankle and everything with the foot that we have got to make sure is working properly.
The big toe.
My God, it's everything.
No one talks about the big toe. They don't think how important this big toe is and that we should be able to control it just by itself.
Yes. Yeah, and not just up and down, but side to side too, which is impossible. I would literally sit there and stare at my big toe. Nothing does not go side to side. But, you know, like shoes have like limited our ability to then abduct our toe or move it to the side. And if we don't have that, we can't create, what's that big old platform that we need, Arnika?
That tripod foot.
That tripod. God, that thing is everything, right? So if you don't have your big toe working, I mean, your shoulder's going to hurt, your hip, your knee, and you're going to be like, I don't understand. I never hurt my shoulder.
Right. And I'm going to look at you like your big toe doesn't move.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and so that's like the biggest reason for this holistic approach to rehab treatment and everything, right? Assess, but let's not just assess the ankle, right? Like, what the heck else is happening? And let's not just assess the shoulder. Let's start at the ground up. I mean, it's just so hugely important. And then if you have bad ankles, right, quote unquote, bad ankles or ankles that haven't been fixed yet, everything trickles up, right? Like we found out trickle down doesn't work.
It all goes up.
That don't work. Trickle down does not work. I don't care if you think it does not work. But trickle up is definitely a thing, right? So yeah, so the ankle, this is why we decided to start here, because it is just so incredibly important. Okay, so moving on. Wait, that was the assess one. See, I told you I was going to mess this up. All right.
It's doing great.
All right, so the next one is, how do you then unfuck it up? Yeah, sorry. This looks better when you're not on there. Whatever. I'm going to have to figure this out. That we're sharing a screen. Okay, so how do you unfuck it up? What is the biggest, what do we do to fix it?
We have to get that range and mobility back in our ankle. That's what we have to do. We have to start there, because if our ankle isn't moving, anything we do is going to triple up and it's going to grab mobility from somewhere else, like our knee or our hip. So we got to get that ankle moving in that joint space.
Right. Yeah, and so an easy way to do this is for joint mobilizations, right? So Arnika would be great at mobilizing your joint, getting some increased range there, and then you then stabilize in that increased range. Or you can do it at home in your gym, right? We have banded joint mobilizations. There's assisted joint mobilizations that you can do. And so a YouTube search will do this. I have a couple on my YouTube, Thai training, but a basic YouTube search will tell you if you have decreased range of motion from your assessment, which we just talked about, then you need to then increase range of motion, right, with joint mobilization. Now, the key to joint mobilization is that shit don't fix overnight, okay?
Facts. I'm still working on my ankles, y'all, and I played ball in high school. They're just now not buckling. I used to wake up in the morning and low-key walk on the sides of my ankle because I just had bad ankles, but no one taught me how to fix them, assess them, none of that. So now I'm just now figuring it out.
Yeah. I mean, and it takes patience. Like, I mean, it takes months. Like, think 6 months, right? Like, get that in your head. Like, you have got to keep approaching these end ranges and this range over and over and over again in order to affect change. It didn't happen overnight, and you ain't gonna unfuck it up overnight. Okay. So it's gonna take a while, right? So there's joint mobilizations, banded or assisted or with a chiropractor. And then there's end range stretches, right? So if you found in your assessment that you're getting stretching or a sensation in your calf, then you might just need to stretch, right? There might not be a joint mobilization that would need to happen. You might just need to increase the range of motion of your calf, right? And so we can do that with stretches or with eccentrics, but think about where you felt the pain. Was there a pinching in the front of the joint, or was there a stretch sensation in the back, right? Like they're two very different things, right, Arnika?
Right. And I want to add on to that because a lot of people come in and say, oh, well, my Achilles feels tight, or this just feels tender here. And a lot of that has nothing to do with your Achilles in the back. It's your calf that feels so tight. And when our calf is what contracts to make our ankle move. So if that's completely tight or restricted, then we lose mobility in our ankle. So we have to release. And one of my favorite calf stretches is honestly doing it on a step and having that low raise to either lengthen my calf, because for me, I don't get as much stretch with the typical put your heel to the ground because I'm already flexible and I'm like, I need something else to lengthen this. So I like that. Putting your toe, like the ball of your foot, on the edge of a step and slowly letting your heel drop below that step gives a good lengthening in that calf.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that's always a really good rule of thumb, I think. I tell most clients, like, unless there was traumatic injury, like somebody hit you in the leg with a bat or you fell and broke your ankle, the spot of pain might not be the problem, right? You got to look above and below, right? Pain will manifest itself in its weakest point, right? But it might not be the root of the problem. So always go above and below your spot of pain. And especially with rolling or joint or tissue mobilization, everything, manipulation, I don't like to go where it hurts. Let's go around that, right? Because obviously that is not happy. Let's go around that because, yeah, it could be your gastroc tendon that is affecting your Achilles. Well, let's work on that, right?
Exactly.
But I love eccentrics, that negative phase, right? The lowering phase, nice and slow, and then hold that end range. That is hugely effective for actually lengthening a muscle. And you can do that in your lats, in your quads, in your calf. So much better than just stretching. Okay,
So much,
and then what's the next step to unfucking it up? We got to stabilize that, right? So we've increased range of motion. Yeah, okay, we're getting somewhere there. But then what's the point in increased range of motion if you can't then control it and stabilize it, right? So how do we stabilize the ankle?
I like your single leg with the deadlift. That's my favorite one.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, like anytime that I can just stand on one foot, I mean, what are you not working there, right? Like that is a lifelong skill that you want to be able to have. So yeah, I mean, I like to work it in different ranges too. So like, can we stand on one leg and make it an RDL? Can we stand on one leg and put the knee, have a forward shin angle and actually stress that ankle a little bit? Can you just stand and hold on to some weights, or can you reach for certain things? Like, can you challenge the ankle to then stabilize so that you don't then hurt it again, right?
Right.
And then strengthening, right? Yeah, what?
It said that you don't fuck up shit above it. I know a test that I do with clients is I have them stand on one leg, and I'm looking at, balance, of course, and I'm looking at their hips, but I'm also looking at their ankle because, one, I'm saying, man, can you control your ankle and move it enough that you can actually hold yourself up? Because that's fucking impressive. Yeah. But now we got to stabilize it. I'm glad that you can move it and that we can move it, but now we got to get that more stable.
Yes. Yeah, and it's amazing the left to right, right? Because if you do have a left ankle that is incredibly stable at the bottom of your squat, that thing is locked and loaded, and then your right ankle is not as stable, not only does it expose the right leg to injury, but it exposes the left leg to injury. Which one you think is going to be working harder for pushing through that squat, right? Like, so a lot of times people will think, oh, well, it's my right ankle that hurts. I don't understand why my left side hurts. And I'm like, well, your left side is pulling double duty and now it's pissed.
Exactly.
Right?
You've been compensating this long, right?
Yes. And all that stuff, like, I can't hammer it away enough that this doesn't get hurt the day that you're in the gym. This starts brewing throughout the years from high school. Like, it's not that squat that you did at the end of that workout that fucked you up. It's all the things that have been brewing and just stirring the pot for years and years. And now that we're of a certain age, it's coming out, right? And so now you're like, I don't understand. I just can't figure out why I can't squat. Well, you can squat. We just got to figure out what's going on, right? Starting from the ground up. So definitely stabilization is huge. And then strengthening, right? Like, are there muscles around the ankle, Arnika?
There are tons of muscles around the ankle. And
I'm guessing there's a few.
In different directions. That's why I love the bands, because you can strengthen all angles. And I like to go 4 corners with hitting all of them.
Yeah, I like to write the alphabet.
Yeah.
Just write the alphabet. Capital, lowercase. Anytime anybody even sprains their ankle, I'm like, did you break it? No. Start writing the alphabet. Just get that thing moving. There's so
always
many
something to do, even with sprains, injuries. People think they want to stop. I'm like, no, you can sit here and just engage that muscle. And for you, that's a lot right there.
Yeah, just stare at it and see if you can tighten it up. Absolutely. No, I'm all like, look at what you're doing. That mind-muscle connection, like, it starts
it's
right
super
here.
Important.
But yeah, like the alphabet, I love going in all directions and just making sure that you're hitting all ranges. But yes, the second you get hurt, unless it's broken, get moving. And that's just a blanket standard statement. If it ain't broken, start moving. So yeah, so we've gone on oh man, I forgot about all these slides. Look, mobilize, stabilize.
It's okay, we're saying it all.
Goodness gracious. I told you to grab your pens and papers. Okay, so if you have a fucked up ankle, what else gets fucked up?
Your knee is the first thing, as we talked about, it goes up. Think about people who have those knock knees, or they're doing squats and their knees are bowing in. That's because of how you're walking, how that ankle is flexing. If it doesn't have the mobility, it's going to try to get it from somewhere. So it starts affecting your knee, and that just pretty much goes to shit. And then our knees are supposed to be stable, but now they're more mobile, and we're wondering why our knees don't line up and why they look weird. But it wasn't our knee issue. It started from our ankle.
Yep. And it could just be, oh, that's me. Girl, that's a lot of people. Okay. So it could just be too that there's some tendinous restrictions, right? So a lot of times people think the knee is messed up from the hip down. And the very first thing I tell people when they have bad knees is, have you gone from the ankle up? Right? Like everybody wants to roll out their IT band and their hip and blah, blah, blah. And
right.
I'm like, well, have you been looking at your ankle? Because that could be what's fucked up. And that's what's fucked up for me, right? So I don't know if people know, but there's gastroc tendon, your calf muscle that comes up from behind your knee. And then the hamstring tendons come down across the back of your knee, right? So those calf tendons have a direct effect on what's going on in your knee. And if your ankle is not working properly, if your big toe ain't working properly, if you're not engaging with the floor in that tripod position that we talked about properly, it's just going to trickle up. So you might not have a bad knee. It's just getting pissed off because you got a bum ankle, right? So hugely important. And then what else? What's above the knee?
Hips. A lot of people are having fucked up hips. I've been seeing a lot of hips and low back, and I'm looking at you like, boo-boo, this started in your ankle, and now years later, you're like, why does my hip hurt? I've never had hip issues before. It's because your right ankle doesn't dorsiflex, and we got to work on that before you can stop that pinching in your hip.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and there's no fixing one without addressing the other. So stop rolling out your psoas if you got a bum ankle. Poor psoas. That thing gets such a bum rap.
Right.
Poor thing.
And the IT band. Poor little IT band.
That IT band. The IT band ain't going nowhere. Stop rolling the IT band. It's not
doing
nothing.
Stop rolling PSA.
It ain't going
Stop rolling the IT.
It's basically a steel rod in your leg. Stop it. You might address the sartorius though, would you?
Right. We'll talk about that when we get to the hip. Yeah. I have so much shit to say about
Yes, we digress. Okay, so the hips, the knee, the hips, it goes up to your shoulders. It could go into everything. Okay, so let's just address the fact that if your big toe and your ankle ain't moving, ain't nothing else gonna be happy, right? So how do we not fuck it up again now that we have increased range of motion, we have strengthened, it's return to exercise? What do we do to not mess it up again? It's already up there.
So for me, I know for me personally being aware, I'm aware of my tripod foot. So I make sure that I'm in the proper stance when it comes to squatting, when it comes to certain movements, making sure that I'm aware and having that control underneath my foot.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So then what's the point in building that mind muscle connection if you're not going to then use it in the gym? For me, it's all overuse, right? Like, so obviously I'm a huge CrossFitter. I love CrossFitting. I love pushing my body to the limit, generally flirt on the corner of injury, but knowing what I know when to shut it the fuck down so I don't fuck myself up, right? So, but most people, when they get out of pain, and what I usually tell my clients, I'm like, pain is not the first thing to come on. Pain is the last thing to come on and the first thing
to leave. Exactly.
It's still brewing. I'm like, you have to keep treating it as if it is acute for at least a month. And that's still being a little generous, right? Like, because it is still brewing. It did not get fucked up overnight, and it's not going to unfuck up overnight, right? Like, it's the pain goes away. You are not in the clear, right? So it's a return to exercise at a cautious rate, right? So if we do not have full dorsiflexion, what are we limited in?
We're limited in squats. We're limited in, honestly, some running. Our running patterns could be messed up. Right.
We'll forget about that all the time. Dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, right? If you can't point your toes, you ain't pushing off right?
Right.
Yeah. Squatting, running, rebounding, box jumps. If you do not have stability and you don't have that capability to then control the ankle, please don't rebound your box jumps. Or how about you don't rebound them unless you are competing, right? Like, let's just not, right? Like, it's just too high of a risk of injury. Double unders, like you're just going to be limited in so many things. And another thing I like to tell my clients is there's the long way to rehab and pain-free, and then there's the short way to rehab and pain-free, right? So I always ask, I'm like, how important is it for you to be pain-free, right? Because I'm the type of person that I'm like, I mean, I kind of want to fix it, but I also don't want to give up all the things that I want to be able to do, right? And so I will probably choose the longer way, in which I'm going to irritate it when I work out within a point of reason, right? Like, I don't want to cripple myself.
Right.
But if I choose the long way, or if you choose to do the long way to rehab, then just know that rebounding box jumps, running, and everything, like, you don't want to overuse it, right? Like, let's not irritate it to the point of just knocking yourself back 10 steps. But, you know, address the things. Like, you might need to rehab 5-6 days a week if you're still doing all these annoying things, right?
Right.
Or there's the short way, right? Shut it down. Shut it down. Do not irritate it on its road to recovery, and do the things that it needs to do in order to heal. But then your re-entry to exercise has to be very, very slow and methodical, right? Like, you got to think about that stuff, right? Too much too soon.
We're back at the beginning again.
Not the business. You done fucked it up all over again.
Exactly.
Right?
Now we're back at step one. Right.
Step one. Absolutely. Great. Great. So that ends up being the really long way.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You were all good for 3 months. You healed it, and then you did too much too soon, and now you got to start all over again. So yeah. What else would you have to say about the ankle or anything, Arnika? This has been great. I think it's awesome.
I think we pretty much covered it. People don't understand, which is why I'm hoping you got all this from here, about how important the mobility in our ankle is, and that we need mobility, which means a full range and it being controlled. I know some people are like, yeah, I'm working on my ankle. I'm like, but can you control it in that motion? And you realize, dang, I can't go that way. So having full range and it be under a controlled range is the goal. And you have to have mobility in there to create stability for the rest of the way up. Yeah. So we got to start with our feet. And a lot of people don't start there. But my biggest thing is the big toe. I nerded out on this last year. And I was like, my big toe does a lot of stuff.
It's a lot.
Someone asked me to move it. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. Now I can do it like a beast because I've been working on it. But our big toe may seem so minute. But those muscles that attach underneath that plantar fascia up to that gastroc help us flex that ankle. So if we can't flex that big toe, what we're doing after that, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. No, it's hugely important. So many people are so uncomfortable at the bottom of lunges in their big toe. And I'm like, you should be able to do that. You should be able to do it barefoot, right? Like, you should be able to do it first thing in the morning. And yeah, everybody's got plantar fasciitis. Well, where do you think it's coming from, right? Like...
Besides those shoes that, you know, that crump your feet up, exactly. And you're wondering why your toes are kind of curving a little bit. We got to work on that. Our footwear plays a huge role. We're crunching our feet in these shoes for what? I go shoeless a good chunk of the day. So.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you should, right? And that's what I tell clients. I'm like, go walk around your house barefoot. Do your warm up and your rehab barefoot, right? Like, I don't think you need to do everything barefoot, right? Like, I'm not that barefoot, you know, person. But I think if you can engage with the floor more and do that for a significant chunk of your training, I think it's hugely important. Now, I'm not telling you to go run 5 miles tomorrow barefoot. Don't you tell, that will fuck you up. Don't tell anybody I sent you to do that, right? Like, so I am telling you to start small and walk around your house barefoot, but it is hugely important to allow the toes to spread and to allow those muscles to work. I mean, all these shoes that have this cushion and this, like the Hokas and everything, and I'm like, dude, we got cushion. It's called muscles. And if the bottoms of your feet hurt, those muscles are probably atrophied and you don't have enough padding. Like, you need to build up those muscles. Yeah. So, yeah.
Or they're getting their padding from the shoe, which causes now to walk around in this ankle position all day.
Yep. Yeah. So it's not okay. I'm not a huge fan of the cushiony shoe, especially when you are actually in the gym training. By all means, please just leave those outside. Anyways, yes, I think this has been wonderful. Next week we are doing the knee, how to not fuck up your knee, how to treat it. Please, 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 I will hopefully save this. Like I said, this was our initial one, but I'm going to save this. I'm going to post it. Tell all your friends we're doing this Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. I think it's going to be hugely important. You're going to get a lot of information. I love that we decided to do this. We've just been vibing. Arnika and I have been vibing, and we are going to crush. We're going to make sure that you guys are living happy, healthy, pain-free, and getting on the road to strength and training for longevity, right? Because it ain't about how fast you can go. It's about how long you can do this for. I plan on doing clean and jerks when I'm 80, so.
Bye. I'm going to be an old lady lifting weights. Like, so we going?
Can't wait. Be looking so fine. I love it. Love it. All right. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Yeah. See you guys next week.